All right, friends, Peggy Hall with you from thehealthyamerican.org. And take a look at this. Kennedy, now maybe you saw this. This just came out, and he did an interview. Well, basically, he was being grilled again. And he, in the Congress, and he said, "We are restoring gold standard science, applying common sense, and beginning to earn back the public's trust. And we're doing it by working with industry to get toxic dyes out of the foods that our families eat every day." We are going to listen to two short videos. And the first one here is where Bob says, "Don't listen to me. I don't want to give recommendations about vaccines." It's very, very interesting. We'll listen to that in just a moment. But remember back, oh gosh, in January when he was being interviewed for the job, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, he'll do a great job as the secretary. And he said things such as, "I support an uptake in vaccines," meaning he likes and supports more people, including children, becoming human pincushions. He wants to protect vaccines. He also said that he recommends that parents follow the CDC vaccine schedule. And he says that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. So that's why I changed the logo here from Children's Health Defense to Children's Vaccine Defense. And of course, he's no longer associated with this organization. Many people don't know that, and they still believe that he is, as people called him, anti-vax. I've shared with you on this channel many, many, many times where he says that I am fiercely pro-vaccine. And he says, "I recommend parents follow the CDC vaccine schedule." Here he was at the Senate confirmation hearings saying these very things. All of this is on my Instagram, which I'm actually not posting on Instagram anymore. But he does say here that he recommends that children get the measles vaccine and get the polio vaccine and get the HPV vaccine. He said all of that in his confirmation hearings. And that's why it is so very interesting now that he is coming out and saying that people should not listen to him. I think that he realizes that people like me and you and many others that are criticizing him for being very inconsistent in his messaging, for presenting himself one way, although many of us know that he has always said that he's fiercely pro-vaccine. But by and large, people in the health freedom movement thought that he was against that. And now he comes onto the scene, and his number one priority is to get rid of the red dye in Fruit Loops. So that somehow is going to make Fruit Loops healthy. Now that there's no more red dye, so now parents can give Fruit Loops to their children because it's suddenly healthy without the red dye. But let's listen to him. This is a very short piece here. I know many of you say it's difficult for you to understand, so I will stop and clarify if needed. All right, here we go.
Something that might be helpful is
let me turn this up a little bit. So this is the House hearing. As I say, he's before Congress and being grilled on his policies.
I think that might be helpful is you've previously said you vaccinated your children.
You've previously said that you've vaccinated your children.
Just I think this is a helpful answer, and this isn't a gotcha, I promise.
This is not a gotcha, I promise.
If you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles?
If you had a child today, would you vaccinate that child for measles?
For measles, probably.
For measles, probably. All right, let's make sure everyone heard that he did say if he had a child today, he would probably vaccinate that child for measles. He looks quite uncomfortable.
Measles. What I would say is my opinions about vaccines are irrelevant.
My opinions about vaccines are irrelevant. All right, he's got new talking points, and the new talking point is don't listen to me. My opinion about vaccines are irrelevant.
I have directed Jay Bhattacharya.
Sure. No, like I said, I don't want to.
So that everybody can make that decision. But I don't want to seem like I'm being evasive.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like I'm being evasive.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
But I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me. Well, I agree. You're not a medical doctor, and people should only take medical advice from a doctor that has personally examined them, that they trust, and they don't even have to take that advice from the doctor. The doctor offers different treatment options, and you have a right to refuse. It is your choice of whether or not you are going to agree or go along with what a doctor recommends. So I agree. Bob and I see eye to eye on this topic. No one should be taking advice from Bob, medical advice. So let's continue. He has changed his talking points, that's for sure.
Right, no, I got that. And I'm not asking you to give them advice, but would you
The interviewer says, I'm not asking you to give medical advice.
Your child for me.
But would you vaccinate your child?
Question directly.
Oh, I know many of you are going to point out that symbolism of his hand gesture. Is it innocuous? Is it just a common gesture? Or is he using that hand gesture on purpose? What say you?
Will seem like I'm giving advice to other people, and I don't want to be.
It will seem like I'm giving advice to other people.
Doing that. I want people to make,
but that's
and I don't want to be doing that. I want people to basically make their own decisions.
Your jurisdiction, because CDC does give advice, right?
And he says, but that is your jurisdiction. The CDC does give advice, right?
What I'm trying to do is a gotcha. Is just
I'm not trying to do a gotcha.
What I think what we're going to try to do is to lay out the pros and cons.
I think what we're going to try to do is lay out the pros and cons. I agree with that.
Risks and benefits.
The risks and benefits.
As we understand them.
Accurately as we understand them.
With replicable studies.
With replicable studies. That's a tough one to say. Yeah, the studies. We'll have to see whether we can trust those or not.
Can you talk about chickenpox? Would you vaccinate your child against chickenpox?
Would you talk about chickenpox? Would you vaccinate your child against chickenpox?
I don't want to give advice.
I don't want to give advice.
I can tell you in Europe, they don't use the chickenpox vaccine.
I can tell you in Europe, they don't use the chickenpox vaccine.
Vaccine specifically because the preclinical trial shows that when you inoculate the population from chickenpox, you get shingles in older people, which is more dangerous.
Just one last.
So he says they don't do that in Europe because when you inoculate them for chickenpox, down the road you get shingles, which is more dangerous in older people. That's basically what he said. So he definitely is changing his tune. And I believe it's because people like me and you and others have pointed out what many people saw as hypocrisy and how many children were being harmed in the meantime because he didn't speak out against these things. And I told you that I would applaud any change. And so this is definitely moving in the right direction.
So I'm just say yes or no, please, because polio.
And then he says, would you vaccinate against polio?
Polio, again, I don't want to be giving advice.
That's fair.
Against polio, again, I don't want to be giving advice. That is rather ironic, however, because the CDC does give advice. Now, let's listen to this next one here. And this is the little screen grab that I gave you. We'll look at that in a moment. We're restoring gold standard science. Can anyone define gold standard science? Is that like government science? We're applying common sense and we're beginning to earn back the public's trust. Friends, that's exactly why he is there. He himself has said it many, many times. I will replay a video for you about his comments of restoring trust. Basically, his job is to encourage people to trust the government so that when he comes out and says something such as good news, we did the studies. These products are safe and effective and necessary. And I recommend, now I'm going to recommend, and you should listen to me, to take these because we have looked at these gold standard studies and we are going to tell you that you can trust us and you can take them. And then he says, we are doing this. We are earning back the public's trust by working with the industry to get toxic dyes out of the foods our families eat every day. Now, I don't know about you, but was that top of your mind? in the last 5 years was getting toxic dyes out of the foods. Did your employer require you to eat Fruit Loops in order to keep your job? Any of you that worked for the military, did the military require you to eat Fruit Loops in order not to be separated and lose your command? Parents of adult children or young adults who went to colleges, did the college administrator require these college students to eat Fruit Loops or other processed foods with toxic dyes in order to keep their place at the university? That would be a big NO. There were other products that were being inflicted upon Americans, and people were being coerced and threatened and being put on unpaid leave, not because they weren't eating Fruit Loops. So perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps I don't understand what the health freedom movement is all about, but I didn't think it was all about Fruit Loops. Here's another part of the problem. Now that you're telling us that you're getting the toxic dye out of Fruit Loops, does that make Fruit Loops healthy? Does that mean parents can go buy Pop-Tarts and Fruit Loops and macaroni and cheese, Kraft macaroni and cheese, because now it's suddenly healthy? Because this orange dye is no longer going to be in the product? Do you see the slippery slope, friends? The other part, so I'm mentioning these are three main things that are bothering me. And the third one is that now he's using that as the stepping stone to gain the public's trust. He's saying it with his own words. We are beginning to earn back the public's trust, and we're doing it by getting rid of the toxic dye. And then people are going to applaud that. They're going to trust him. This is very innocuous, in my opinion, to get rid of the toxic dye. Am I in favor of toxic dye in the food? Absolutely not. Do I have a choice to not purchase those foods? Absolutely yes. I don't buy things. I read the packages. I don't buy a lot of food that's packaged. So I've talked about red dye being a red herring. So he's using this as a simple win. It's like the low hanging fruit. It is a typical, I don't want to call it a bait and switch. So I'll just call it, I don't know, a bait and switch. And when you think about anyone who has been through sales training, you get people to trust you by starting kind of with low level things that they can agree with. So most people are going to say, yeah, I don't want toxic dye. Yeah, we need to clean up the food supply. Then what's the next step? The government outlawing sodas. Of course, they are pushing to not allow people to purchase soda with their government SNAP, with their government money. It used to be called food stamps. I'm not in favor of the government restricting what people can purchase, even with government dollars. So that is just another step toward more restriction, more government intervention. Let's listen now to this next little clip. And the same thing, I am going to stop it and start it. So it's only about a minute long.
One of I think, the really important accomplishments that we've done over the past 100 days is we've been working with the food industry, and we found the food industry very, very receptive. We think we have good science that links almost all of these dyes with ADHD, with neurological injury, with cancer.
Great news, everybody. It's the red dye. It's the red dye that is causing the ADHD, the neurological injuries, and cancer. Forget about all those turbo cancers you've heard about on social media. I mean, forget about that. Parents who have suffered along with their children with these harms that so curiously happened after they took their infant to the visit to the doctor, and the innocent child was held down kicking and screaming while it was jabbed. Good news. Their damage has nothing whatsoever to do with that. It's the Fruit Loops that you were giving your infant. It's the red dye. He said it himself. Let's listen again.
The food industry, and we found the food industry very, very receptive. We think we have good science that links almost all of these dyes with ADHD, with neurological injury, with cancer.
I'm not even going to subject you to the rest of that. I will leave it for you on my Substack, which will be published the day following this video, so you can see that tomorrow and listen if you like. He's linking all of these issues to what they're calling toxic dyes. So forget all that other stuff. It's great news. Just make the Fruit Loops without the toxic red dye. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is the FDA. And I did a video for you yesterday or the day before. The FDA, Marty Makary, he is the Johns Hopkins University MD. And of course, Johns Hopkins was the one doing the dashboard for all of the cooties cases and deaths. So the flu mongering that was nonstop. I don't have TV, but if I was out and about, you see that. So this is the man now that is in charge. And we're going to listen to him and his one of the top appointees. And this is the man who is in charge of actually approving the new biologics. So CBER is the center within the FDA that regulates biological products for human use, meaning vaccines. We're going to see now this new podcast from the FDA, and it's called FDA Direct. And this just came out, and I'm going to share just a couple of snippets with you. It's a 20-minute podcast. You have a link here, and I will also have a link for you in my Substack. And I'm going to just give you a couple of snippets. So let's listen to the first couple of minutes here.
Scripted, no makeup, live from the FDA. Welcome, Vinay Prasad. Great to see you.
It's great to be here, Marty. It's great to.
He's the one that you see to the right of your screen. He is the one that is in charge now of approving these new products, including vaccines. Suffice it to say, he wants to fast track them, and he wants to use AI to vet the research. And listen for it, because he loves vaccines. He also says that there's probably no doctor that has given as many vaccines as he has. This fellow right here. So let's listen in a little bit, shall we?
And we got Sangela Jan Nagpaul, who is an
Okay, so she's the Associate Director of Policy and Research Strategy. I've noticed, it's just an observation, that there are many individuals of Indian descent who are rising in American politics. I happen to love the Indian culture. I have some dear friends that are of Indian descent. I'm just making an observation when we think of Kash Patel. We're looking at Vivek Ramaswamy, that is no longer really in federal politics, but I believe is running for governor of Ohio. And he was running for president. And Vinayak Prasad now is the man who's going to be approving and fast tracking these biologics. And Sangela is the Associate Director of Policy and Research Strategies. She served sort of as the moderator. I thought it was a very interesting podcast. I do plan on listening to more of them. But what caught me was their excitement about AI doing the research, and about Prasad here loving vaccines.
some PhD health policy expert who is with us in the commissioner's office. So great to see both of you guys.
All right, I'm going to go ahead, as I said, a little bit, because it's a 20-minute interview, and I just want to bring out the highlights here. So I'm going to go a few minutes in, and let's see if this is right around the right time.
Why have you been critical, particularly in the vaccine space, and help everyone understand, kind of your thinking behind that?
So,
all right, a little bit more background. This moderator was saying that both of these individuals, Makary in charge of the FDA, and then Prasad, who's going to be approving these, apparently they said that young, healthy children should not get their 7th, 8th, or 9th booster. So I guess the first few are okay. And somehow I guess that's being critical of these jabs. They never talked about not getting them at all. They're talking about not getting the boosters, just to give you a little background. And apparently that has given them a reputation for being anti-vax.
And I think vaccines are like drugs, which is that when given at the right time and the right moment to the right person, they're life-saving. But just like drugs, they need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis and always take into the context that you're giving. And Marty and I, throughout the pandemic, we were proponents of vaccines for the people in whom it had a huge benefit.
We were proponents of vaccines. See, many people are not actually listening to all of their statements.
But we were always a bit skeptical from a scientific standpoint about perhaps overdoing it in some low-risk populations.
Wait a minute, you don't think a healthy, thin 12-year-old girl needs a 7th COVID shot?
7.
You don't think a thin, healthy 12-year-old girl. I do not understand the qualifiers. I don't understand what thinness has to do with it. I don't understand the age. I don't understand the gender. Why not just say children? So that is troubling to me. I brought that up in a previous video, because does that mean unhealthy children should get the 7th, 8th, or 9th? And why is he only talking about the 7th, 8th, or 9th and not talking about the first one at all?
This is the 8th versus the 9th versus, I mean, it's really,
It's an unknown.
it's an unknown. And it also is a way in which the United States has never been in line with peer nations across Europe. And so that's not anti-vax, it's pro-science, trying to bring the best available science to answer these questions. You know, the media, in many cases, in my opinion, they sort of misrepresent the concepts that we're talking about at FDA. They have sort of a superficial view of what we're doing, and in some ways they kind of miss the mark. But in terms of, you know, what I've been doing for 15 years, I'm a professor, I'm a hem-onc doctor. Probably no one's given, or few doctors have given as many vaccines as I have, because
few doctors have given as many vaccines as I have. How do you think he sleeps at night? Few doctors have given as many vaccines as I have, he says.
Terrible. A lot of patients post autologous stem cell transplant.
Immunosuppressed.
We give, you know, and you need to give these.
They're immunosuppressed and getting more of the cocktails. I'm trying to figure out the logic on that one.
Vaccines. So, you know, we love vaccines. What?
Did you hear that? We love vaccines.
Vaccines. So, you know, we love vaccines.
We love vaccines. Let me scoot ahead a little bit here, and we're going to talk about how they are embracing. Okay, so they love the vaccines. No one has given as many vaccines as he has. They're good for the immunocompromised. And now he's going to talk about embracing AI to actually fast track the approval of these products.
Pathophysiology in terms of how to assess those products. At the same time, we also want to protect those patients from potentially harmful products. So we will continue to strike the balance at FDA between those two things.
Let's see, I think it's a little further ahead here. All right, here we go.
Yeah, day one, we said we got to stop just talking about AI, having conferences and panels and frameworks and consensus document. We got to do it, right? We have to actually do it. We got to do it, and now's the time to do it. So day one, when I got in, 5 weeks ago now, we started a massive initiative, and we have now the first high-level AI-assisted scientific review that just took place, and the scientific reviewer loved it. I mean, I don't know if, you know, we can find him or pull him in here to bring him on the camera, but I mean, what he said about, I don't know if he talked to you.
Yeah, I was reviewing some of the data we talked about. I mean, to go from, it was 3 days down to 6 minutes for just one piece of that review process is.
And it's done by a computer. Did you notice 3 days and 6 minutes? Is that just, that's probably just a coincidence. I wouldn't read into the numbers too much, although I think it's something to note. Let's listen again.
Scientific review that just took place, and the scientific reviewer loved it. I mean, I don't know if, you know, we can find him or pull him in here to bring him on the camera, but I mean, what he said about, I don't know if he talked to you.
Yeah, I was reviewing some of the data we talked about. I mean, to go from, it was 3 days down to 6 minutes.
3 days down to 6 minutes, like 3 sixes, 666. Oh, I'm probably blowing things out of proportion, but I can't help noticing those little clues that are dropped.
For just one piece of that review process is tremendous.
Yeah, I think the public that may not be aware, but when a reviewer is thinking about the application for a medical product, we're talking not just hundreds of pages to read, but potentially thousands or maybe tens of thousands of pages to read. And if you
we shouldn't do all that. Why should a human being spend time thinking, analyzing, reasoning, and drawing a conclusion as a human being when we can just have AI do it?
AI brought into that to help you dissect, to cut to the most important parts of it, we can tremendously speed up drug regulation and drug processes. And
we can tremendously speed up drug regulation and drug processes. This is the man who is in charge of this cyber Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. Yes, friends, he is the one who is going to be approving these drugs. Now, hopefully I am still broadcasting because I don't see where we are here, but I can't see your comments, friends. I appreciate you being on board. Be sure that you sign up for my Substack. I will have the links to these videos in that Substack, and I will be reading your comments, and I very often incorporate your comments into the Substack as well. And I very often reference those comments in the subsequent videos. Thank you, everybody, for being on board. I will continue to evaluate what's going on at the FDA and the CDC and the Health and Human Services. Let me know what you think about Bob's change of heart and why he is now speaking with different talking points. Do you think he's sincere? Do you think this is the turning of the page? Do you think this was the day that we were waiting for? I will be first in line to applaud the elimination of these unnecessary, harmful products that we know are causing the problems that he is tying to these toxic dyes. All right, friends, I appreciate you being on board, and I look forward to seeing you in tomorrow's broadcast. I'm here at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, sometimes with a bonus video here and there. And also a big shout out of thanks and appreciation to the moderators who are here helping to keep our community thriving. See you soon, everybody.